Well, traitors have been identified in the White House. Not only that, but there are rumors flying about Donald Trump declaring martial law on April 20th. What's the truth in that, and what the hell is going on? Let's start first with the traitors in the White House. Take a look at this article, and this is on the NewYorkPost.com. Trump orders DOJ to investigate anonymous author Miles Taylor. I think he's guilty of treason. We will find out. The article goes on. President Trump on Wednesday ordered the Justice Department to launch investigations of anonymous author Miles Taylor for leaking during his first term, and into former cybersecurity official Christopher Keebs for attesting stuff regarding the election. I think he's guilty of treason, if you want to know the truth, but we'll find out. He's a terrible guy. Trump said of Taylor, the former chief of staff, Department of Homeland Security, as he signed the presidential memorandum in the Oval Office to launch DOJ reviews. Taylor in 2018 stroked massive public interest with a New York Times op-ed in which he purported to be a senior official in the Trump administration and wrote he was working diligently from within to frustrate part of Trump's agenda and his worst inclinations. In 2019, Taylor wrote, also anonymously, a book, a warning. There is a significant letdown when the previous little-known Taylor outed himself in 2020, deflating heated speculation that the author was a member of the 45th president's inner circle. Now, Trump goes on to say, it's like a traitor. It's like spying. He walks into the office. He's supposed to be sitting here. Trump fumed. He wrote a book anonymously, and I always thought it was terrible. And now we have a chance to find out whether or not it was terrible, but it was. It was a work of fiction, and he got a lot of publicity. Got himself a nice little job with Communist News Network, or one of them, and I think we have to do something about it. Trump signed a similar order against Keebs, the former director of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, who the president fired in November 2020 for basically saying stuff regarding the United States election. So, two traitors that Donald Trump is now calling for straight up investigations over. And I believe that there are a lot of questions regarding both of these men, and they absolutely need to be investigated. And I'm glad Donald Trump has caught them. Now, before I go any further, I've got some real crazy stuff to share with you regarding this martial law news. But before that, I got to give a shout out to my sponsor, LisaHavenGold.com. Gold is up 46% in a year, doubling NASDAQ and the S&P 500. And this isn't just another rally that's going on. Gold reserves are shifting as investors are rushing to secure physical gold and even physical silver, by the way, which is also increasing, but it's creating a massive gap. Gold is vanishing from the market, and that's why I want to encourage you, go to LisaHavenGold.com, fill out this information, and they're going to send you a free gold and silver investment guide. But better yet, call the number on the screen and make sure you are filling your pockets with gold, silver, and precious metals. Noble Gold actually ships it directly to your door. Not only that, if you're also looking for an IRA or 401k or something backed by gold, silver, and precious metals, they offer that as well. But make sure you give them my name, Lisa Haven, because they are giving away this 1/10 ounce gold coin with any approved plan. So make sure you bring that up. If you want more information, click the more button or click the link in the description box below. And by the way, there's always a risk to investing. There's never a guarantee. All right. So aside from the crooked traitors that have now been ousted by Donald J. Trump, and I'm glad that they're not going to be working for him any longer, and that the DOJ is looking into some corrupt stuff, because they were a lot of the ones that spearheaded some of the bad things. For example, during the pandemic, one of those guys did. But either way, right now there is a massive rumor taking place that Donald Trump is going to literally declare martial law on April 20th. Well, where did this rumor come from, and is there any truth to it? Well, take a look. This is on Medium, and this was put together by Alphysnus or something. Butchering the name, don't care, but he's the one that kind of put all this together, and I think he is the one that sparked this rumor, and that is exactly what it is. But it says, on April 20th, 2025, the United States may cross the point of no return. He goes on, it sounds wild. maybe even crazy. But every step is already in motion. I'd be happy to be wrong, but if this is correct, you will be ready, he says. On April 20th, 2025, the U.S. may initiate its final steps into authoritarian rule. That's the day Donald Trump Advisory Committee is expected to release its findings on whether we should invoke the Insurrection Act, a move that would allow him to deploy the military domestically and allow Trump to impose martial law. Given Hegseth and Noem are the main advisors, the conclusion is foregone. And as his 2 months in office has already shown, he won't stop at just the legal options. Expect an executive order, even the same day or even the next day, officially declaring the Insurrection Act, restricting freedoms in the name of restoring control of the border, and perhaps in blue state cities, and setting the larger plan in motion. Dun, 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 cue the music, right? But anyway, what the hell is all of this about? And what is this crazy radical leftist talking about? Well, he's talking about this. And by the way, he's completely wrong. I'm going to start off right off the bat. This is fake news. And I'm going to tell you why it is fake news. Donald Trump is not declaring martial law, NOT, not declaring martial law on April 20th. But here's what he's trying to frame it as, right? Donald Trump on January 20th put this out. He declared a national emergency at the southern border of the United States. He told us he was going to do this, and he did do this, and he followed through shortly after he became president. Now, what this author is referring to in this particular directive, right, or this executive order, is this little part right here. Within 90 days of the date of this proclamation, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall submit a joint report to the President about the conditions at the southern border of the United States and any recommendations regarding additional actions that may be necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border, including whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. So what Donald Trump is saying here is after 90 days from January 20th, landing in April, if you will, says, all right, if we need to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 to secure our border, we will do that. In other words, it has nothing to do with sending military personnel or National Guard all over the United States of America. It's talking about the border. But what is the Insurrection Act and how does it differ from, say, martial law, right? Here's the Insurrection Act of 1807. And mind you, I know many of you already know this, but there are liberals listening who actually believe that that is going to happen, even though it's not. But here it is. The Insurrection Act of 1807 is a U.S. federal law that empowers the President of the United States to nationally deploy the military, to federalize the National Guard units of the individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder, of insurrection, and of armed rebellion against the federal government of the U.S. The Insurrection Act provides a statutory exception to the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 that legally limits the president deploying the U.S. military to enforce either civil or criminal law within the United States. In other words, he can send it to a certain area. If there's some kind of disorder going on, say there's another BLM riot and it gets violent, he can call it in to that section. Or say there's something going on at the United States border, he can call it in for aids at the border, right? What is the difference between that and martial law? And there's a really big difference. They actually admit it on this article, and this is on the Patriot Ledger, and it's titled, "Is Trump Declaring Martial Law and What is the Insurrection Act of 1807?" But here's what it says, right? Insurrection Act versus martial law. Just like with the Insurrection Act, martial law also invokes the imposition of military control. The key difference, and it's a big difference, is that military involvement through martial law is much broader. First, martial law applies broadly to the whole nations or large regions, whereas the Insurrection Act is typically invoked for localized unrest or rebellion, such as the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Second, under martial law, there is a broad suspension of civil rights and liberties, such as freedom of assembly, speech, and the right to fair trial. And none of that is happening with this Insurrection Act, but military commanders replace civil authorities and courts might be replaced with military tribunals. None of that is happening on None of that is happening with this executive order. They are two different things. And this guy is taking everything out of proportion and causing major panic on the left. It was so bad that even Snopes came out and in a roundabout way said it's not true, because this is kind of their left conspiracy theory, if you will. And none of the conspiracy theories on the left ever pan out. Can't say the same, for unfortunately, a lot of conspiracy theories have come true, but not the ones on the far left like this. But here, Snopes actually has to admit, and I think she probably cried into her pillow that she had to do this. But in any aspect, investigating rumor, Trump will declare martial law on April 20th, invoking the Insurrection Act, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read all their thing, but here's their conclusion. As the writing of this on April 9th, this rumor existed more as a prediction, you think, than a provable claim. Well, hallelujah. You actually did something semi-right. If we have to give some credit, it's fake news, but why can't they just write it's fake news? But anyway, they are a leftist source. Searches of websites for the DOD, the DHS, and the White House yield no announcement, statements, or demonstrable evidence that might help shed light on the unproven manner. Interesting, right? Anyhow, I wanted to bring all of that to you. Lots of stuff going on. By the way, please make sure you're still subscribed here on YouTube. They like to remove people now and then, and give this video a thumbs up. Can't wait to read your comments regarding this. Obviously, massive fake news on the left, and thankfully, Donald Trump is taking care of what he's calling some traitors, right? Who were within his administration, and hopefully, DOJ comes through and if they don't find anything, they don't find anything, right? If they do, they do. Then something should happen. Anyhow, regarding criminal prosecutions. Anyhow, I love you guys. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.